Do you ever catch yourself thinking, I want to leave, but maybe I should stay and be patient? Let's be brutally honest for a second, because your heart already knows the truth. You're not being patient, you're being played. Staying in an uncomfortable situation doesn't make you wise, strong, or loyal. It simply teaches the other person that your boundaries are negotiable and that they can walk all over you without consequence. But here's the twist most people never understand. The truly confident person, the one with real stoic resolve, doesn't cling to chaos and call it growth. They don't wait for someone else to change. They don't shrink themselves to preserve a connection that's already fading. They stay calm, they stay aware, and when it's time to leave, they leave. No theatrics, no emotional begging, no desperate hope that maybe this time it'll be different. Just self-respect in motion. Now, that's easy to say. Everyone loves the idea of walking away with dignity, but actually doing it, that's a completely different battlefield. When your heart is involved, when you've invested time, emotion, and identity, when you've convinced yourself that leaving means failure, walking away doesn't feel powerful, it feels impossible. And that's exactly why the Stoics built tools, real, practical mental frameworks that help you see clearly, act decisively, and protect your peace without collapsing emotionally. Throughout this video, we're going to drop these Stoic tools one by one, each designed to help you detach, set boundaries, and walk away with strength. But listen carefully. If you skip around, if you jump ahead, if you zone out even for a moment, you're going to miss essential steps, tools that stack on top of each other to rebuild your self-respect from the inside out. So watch this all the way through. No distractions, no multitasking, just you and the philosophy that has helped men survive heartbreak, betrayal, and emotional chaos for over 2,000 years. Chapter 1: Why We Stay Too Long. Let's start with the truth almost nobody admits. You rarely stay because the situation is good. You stay because the situation is familiar, and the human mind would rather suffer in the known than face the unknown. This is where the Stoics were brutally honest, not about relationships, but about attachment itself. They understood that most of our pain doesn't come from other people. It comes from the stories we create about them. Stories that make leaving feel like ripping out a piece of ourselves. So why do people stay long after the respect is gone, the connection is fading, and the clarity is obvious? It usually comes down to 3 psychological traps. 1. The hope trap. Maybe it'll get better. Hope is beautiful until it becomes a cage. Modern psychology calls it intermittent reinforcement, the cycle of good moments mixed with bad ones. It keeps you emotionally hooked. It makes you addicted to potential, not reality. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. Attachment to potential blinds you to the truth in front of you. 2. The ego trap. I don't want to feel like I failed. Let's be honest. Sometimes you stay not because you love the person, but because you love the idea of not being the one who gave up. But the Stoics taught the opposite. Walking away isn't failure. Clinging to what's hurting you, that's the real defeat. 3. The identity trap. Who am I without this? This is the quiet one. When you've intertwined your sense of self with someone else, leaving feels like you're erasing a part of your identity. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think define you are the very things you must learn to detach from." People don't stay because they're weak. They stay because their mind has confused comfort with connection, consistency with compatibility, familiarity with value. And here's the part most people avoid looking at. If you have to justify someone's behavior, you already know it isn't right. Now here's where things get interesting. The Stoics understood something most people today completely forget. Sometimes life has to burn down your plans to reveal the truth you've been avoiding. And this leads us straight into one of the most important stories in all of Stoic history. A story about loss, shipwreck, and the moment where everything you cling to is taken away in an instant. Most people think walking away is the end, but for one man, it was the beginning of the entire Stoic philosophy. Chapter 2 begins with the shipwreck that created a philosopher. Let's go there. Chapter 2. Zeno's shipwreck, when life forces you to walk away. Most people think walking away is a choice. For Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, it wasn't. Life made the decision for him. Picture this: a merchant ship cutting through the Aegean Sea, loaded with cargo, plans, and confidence, until a storm ripped everything apart. Black waves, cracking wood, a future collapsing in seconds. Zeno lost everything: his wealth, his identity, his entire blueprint for life. He washed ashore with nothing but the clothes on his back and the weight of failure pressing into his ribs. He didn't choose to walk away. He was forced to. And that's why his story is so brutally relevant. Sometimes life ends the thing you're too afraid to release, not to punish you, but to free you. That shipwreck became the birth of Stoicism, not comfort, not success, but collapse. Zeno didn't run back to the sea or cling to what was already gone. He didn't rebuild the same life out of fear or nostalgia. He accepted reality, stood up, and walked forward into a life he never planned but desperately needed. The painful truth. Walking away is hardest when your identity is tied to what you're leaving. Zeno wasn't just losing a ship, he was losing the man he thought he was supposed to be. You've felt that before, haven't you? That breakup that made you question who you are. That relationship ending that felt like the ground disappeared. That moment when everything collapsed and you didn't recognize yourself anymore. But here's the Stoic revelation Zeno discovered. Your identity isn't in what you lost. It's in who you become after you lose it. His shipwreck wasn't a tragedy. It was a reset. A forced detachment from a version of himself that was too small for the man he was meant to become. And whether you realize it or not, the same dynamic might be happening to you right now. Zeno's shipwreck shows us that life will remove what you refuse to walk away from. But the Stoics didn't stop at acceptance. They built a method to see people and situations clearly, without the illusions that keep you stuck. Because you can't walk away from what you still romanticize. You can't detach from what you've idealized into fantasy. And you can't reclaim your self-respect until you see others and yourself without distortion. So in Chapter 3, we'll break down the first Stoic discipline: perception, the ability to see the truth instead of the story you've been telling yourself. This is where the emotional fog lifts. This is where clarity begins. This is where detachment becomes possible. Let's step into it. Chapter 3. The discipline of perception, seeing people clearly. Before you can walk away, you need to see clearly, and that's where most people get trapped. The Stoics taught that our suffering rarely comes from the person in front of us, but from the story we tell ourselves about them. You don't fall in love with a person, you fall in love with your interpretation of who you think they are. That's why walking away feels so hard. You're not leaving them, you're leaving the fantasy. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception, the ability to separate what is real from what is imagined. Most people ignore red flags because they conflict with the story they want to believe. They excuse disrespect, explain away distance, reinterpret mixed signals, and romanticize inconsistency. But the truth is simple. If you have to keep rewriting the narrative to make someone look better, they're not for you. Perception requires brutal honesty, not judgment, not anger, just clarity. Ask yourself, what am I observing? And separately, what am I hoping this means? When those two answers don't align, you're already losing your peace. Marcus Aurelius warned that the mind creates illusions more dangerous than any external enemy. In relationships, those illusions sound like, "They'll change." They didn't mean it. They're just stressed. But clarity sounds like, "Their actions are consistent. Their behavior is a pattern, and the pattern is the truth." When you see clearly, detachment becomes possible. Not because you stop caring, but because you stop deceiving yourself. And in that moment, something shifts internally. You realize you deserve relationships that don't require detective work or emotional gymnastics to make sense. Once you see the truth, the next question becomes, what do I do with it? And that's where most people fall apart. Knowing isn't enough. Clarity is useless without action. The Stoics built an entire discipline around this: courage, virtue, and the ability to do what's right even when it's uncomfortable. So in Chapter 4, we're going to step into the next layer of walking away, the discipline of action. This is where boundaries stop being ideas and become behavior. This is where you learn to stand up for yourself quietly, firmly, and without apology. This is where self-respect becomes visible. Let's keep going. Chapter 4. The Discipline of Action. Boundaries as self-respect in motion. Seeing the truth is only half the battle. Clarity without action is just another form of procrastination. You can understand someone's patterns, their inconsistencies, their disrespect. But if you remain in the same place, tolerating the same behavior, your insight becomes a cage rather than a key. The Stoics knew this. Awareness means nothing without courage. And courage isn't loud. It's the quiet decision to act on what you know is right, even when your heart tries to pull you backward. Most people don't struggle with knowing what to do. They struggle with doing it. Because taking action often means disrupting the familiar. Setting a boundary might mean losing the person you wanted. Walking away might mean confronting loneliness. Saying no might invite conflict. But avoiding these consequences is how people end up living lives that betray their own values. The Stoics lived by a simple rule. If an action protects your integrity, it's the right action, regardless of how uncomfortable it feels in the moment. That's why they viewed boundaries differently than modern culture does. A boundary isn't a threat, a lecture, or an emotional explosion. A boundary is a behavior. It's the willingness to leave the table when respect is no longer being served. It's choosing what supports your character over what satisfies your urges. It's acting with strength even when your emotions want comfort. And here's the part that surprises most people. Boundaries reveal more about you than the other person. When you enforce a boundary, you're not trying to control them. You're controlling yourself. You're choosing your peace over their chaos, your standards over their inconsistency, your long-term self-respect over short-term attachment. This is the moment where your identity shifts from someone who reacts to someone who decides. But this level of action requires a certain kind of stillness, the kind where you no longer rush to explain yourself. You don't argue, you don't beg, you don't dramatize the point. Stoics never asked others to validate their boundaries. They simply lived by them. And slowly, quietly, people took notice. That's the part modern society gets wrong. Self-respect doesn't need an announcement. It needs consistency. When you finally act on what you know, when you calmly withdraw from disrespect, silence manipulation, or remove yourself from emotional uncertainty, you're not just protecting your peace, you're sending a message to your own mind. I can trust myself. And that trust is the foundation of every strong, resilient, unshakable person. Every time you honor your boundaries, you reinforce the belief that you are someone worth protecting. But action comes with a cost. Following through often means stepping into discomfort. You might feel grief, fear, or emptiness. You might question whether you did the right thing. Your emotions might pull you back toward the familiar, even if the familiar was hurting you. And this is where most people break. Not because they made the wrong choice, but because they weren't ready for the emotional storm that follows the right one. This is why the Stoics created the discipline of will, the inner strength to endure emotional discomfort without collapsing back into old patterns. Because after you take action, the hardest part begins, staying gone. You'll feel the urge to return, to rationalize, to reach out, to negotiate with the version of you that feared loneliness more than self-disrespect. In Chapter 5, we're going to step into that internal battlefield, the emotional withdrawal, the second-guessing, the fear, the empty space that appears after you finally choose yourself. And we're going to show you why that pain isn't a sign that you made the wrong choice. It's the proof that you finally made the right one. Chapter 5, the discipline of will, enduring the pain of leaving. Here's the part no one prepares you for. Taking action feels powerful in the moment, but the aftermath can feel like a storm you weren't ready to face. Once you walk away or enforce a boundary, you're hit with a wave of emotions that don't feel like victory. They feel like loss. They feel like doubt. They feel like emptiness. And this is exactly where most people break. Not when they leave, but when they're alone afterward. The Stoics understood that emotional pain isn't a sign you made the wrong decision. It's a withdrawal from the attachment you worked so hard to detach from. They believed the mind clings harder right after you remove something familiar, even if that familiar thing was hurting you. This is why the first nights feel heavy, why your mind replays the good moments, why you start rewriting history to justify going back, why the silence becomes louder than the chaos you walked away from. This is where the discipline of will comes in. The Stoics taught that willpower isn't about white-knuckling your way through life. It's about building an inner stillness that can withstand emotional turbulence without collapsing. It's the recognition that pain is temporary, but self-betrayal lasts forever. The discomfort you feel after leaving is the price of admission for becoming the person you keep saying you want to be. Stoic endurance isn't coldness, it's commitment. It's choosing not to run back to what broke you just because loneliness entered the room. It's understanding that healing requires time, and time requires patience. It's realizing that every urge to return is just your ego seeking comfort, not truth. And it's remembering that relief doesn't come from going backward. It comes from surviving long enough to grow forward. This phase feels like a test because it is one. The universe will tempt you with nostalgia, with fantasy, with the highlight reel of what once was. But the Stoics would refocus you with a single principle. Do not let the emotions of the moment destroy the principles you have built. Your boundary meant something when you set it. It still means something now. And here's the surprising thing. The pain you feel after walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of recalibration. Your mind is rewiring itself. Your identity is reshaping. Your self-respect is rebuilding. The storm you're in right now is not punishment, it's purification. But there's an enemy you're about to face. One the Stoics warned about long before modern psychology gave it a name: emotional coercion. It shows up in relationships, friendships, and even situations that try to pull you back through guilt, mixed signals, or inconsistency. Chapter 6 is where we expose the difference between walking away with clarity and being manipulated into returning. This is where ghosting culture, push-pull dynamics, and emotional games are dismantled through a Stoic lens. Let's keep moving. Chapter 6. Modern emotional games, ghosting, push-pull, and Stoic immunity. By the time you reach this point, you've seen the truth. taken action, and endured the emotional storm that follows. But there's another challenge waiting on the other side. One the Stoics understood long before social media, situationships, or ghosting culture existed. It's the challenge of manipulation disguised as connection. Modern relationships often run on emotional games, mixed signals, sudden distance followed by affection, disappearing acts, breadcrumbing, hot and cold cycles that keep you hooked. It's not by accident, it's psychology. People use inconsistency to maintain control, to keep you guessing, to keep you invested. And if you're not grounded, these behaviors can pull you right back into the very situation you fought so hard to escape. This is where Stoicism becomes a weapon. The Stoics taught that clarity is power, and that anyone who thrives on confusion is not someone you should emotionally invest in. They believed that emotional games are only effective when your mind is reactive. Once you become steady, calm, and perceptive, the games lose their grip. Let's be direct. Ghosting is not strength, it's avoidance. Push-pull dynamics aren't passion, they're manipulation. And the cycle of inconsistency isn't chemistry, it's emotional control dressed as romance. A Stoic doesn't chase someone who disappears, doesn't reward inconsistency with attention, and doesn't mistake volatility for depth. They stay rooted in their principles, not in someone else's unpredictability. Here's the truth. People who play emotional games depend on you reacting. They expect you to panic when they pull away, to soften when they return, to tolerate the cycle because you confuse anxiety for excitement. But the moment you remain still, the moment you stop responding to chaos, the game ends. Not because they stopped playing, but because you stopped participating. Walking away isn't just about physically leaving, it's about emotionally disconnecting from dynamics that drain your self-respect. It's the inner shift from, I hope they come back, to, I hope I keep growing. When someone sees you won't chase, won't beg, won't collapse into their inconsistency, they either step up with respect or they lose access to you entirely. Either outcome serves your peace. So now the real question becomes, how do you know with absolute clarity when it's truly time to walk away? Not based on emotion, but based on principle. The Stoics weren't vague about this. They had clear indicators, patterns, standards, and internal markers that reveal when staying is self-betrayal. Chapter 7 is where we break down these signs, the unmistakable Stoic criteria that tell you it's time to go. This is the part most people skip, and the part that changes everything. Let's go. Chapter 7. When it's time to walk away, Stoic criteria for leaving. Most people don't leave when things are bad. They leave when things finally become undeniable. Because the truth is, your mind sees the red flags long before your heart is ready to act on them. The Stoics believed that leaving shouldn't be emotional, it should be principled, a decision rooted in clarity, self-respect, and alignment with your values. So how do you know when it's truly time to walk away? The Stoics identified several unmistakable signs, and if you see even one of these patterns consistently, staying becomes an act of self-betrayal. 1. Your peace is consistently disturbed. If someone's presence creates more anxiety than stability, more confusion than clarity, more tension than calm, that's not a relationship, it's an emotional tax. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind must guard its inner citadel. Staying with someone who constantly invades that citadel is the opposite of Stoic discipline. 2. You're negotiating your self-respect. Anytime you catch yourself shrinking your standards, softening your boundaries, or tolerating treatment you'd advise a friend to walk away from, you're not in love. You're compromising your identity. No Stoic ever sacrificed virtue for attachment. 3. You're in love with potential, not reality. If you're in a relationship with who someone might become, not who they are today, you're building your future on fantasy. Hope is not a strategy. The Stoics warned that clinging to potential clouds judgment and prolongs suffering. 4. Their actions contradict their words. A Stoic evaluates behavior, not promises. If someone consistently speaks well but acts poorly, the behavior is the truth. Words are currency, actions are evidence, and evidence never lies. 5. You've stopped feeling like yourself. When a relationship slowly erodes your identity, drains your energy, or makes you feel smaller, the Stoics would say you're violating your own nature. Anything that diminishes your character is something you must release. 6. You've tried to communicate, and nothing changes. Stoics valued reason, dialogue, and growth. But if someone refuses to meet you there, staying becomes an emotional loop with no exit. You can't fix a pattern someone is committed to repeating. These criteria aren't emotional. They're diagnostic. They help you bypass the stories, excuses, and illusions that keep you stuck. The truth is, deep down, you usually know when it's time to go. You've just been waiting for permission. Consider this that permission. Walking away becomes obvious when staying requires you to abandon the person you're trying to become. Now that you know when to leave, the next challenge is how to do it with strength, clarity, and self-respect, without falling into drama or emotional chaos. The Stoics had a systematic approach for this, a step-by-step internal process that transforms walking away from a painful collapse into a powerful act of identity. In Chapter 8, we break down exactly how to walk away, the Stoic method for leaving cleanly, confidently, and without looking back. Let's continue. Chapter 8. How to walk away with strength, the Stoic method. Knowing when to walk away gives you clarity, but knowing how to walk away gives you power. Most people leave in a burst of emotion, slamming the door, making a speech, or trying to prove a point. Stoics did the opposite. They walked away quietly, intentionally, and with a level of self-respect that didn't need an audience. The strength wasn't in the exit, it was in the manner of the exit. The Stoic method for walking away isn't dramatic. It's structured, it's calm, it's grounded in virtue rather than reaction, and it unfolds in a series of deliberate steps. Step 1. Accept what you can't control. This is the foundation. You can't control someone's behavior, effort, consistency, or emotional maturity. You can only control your response to it. Accepting this dissolves the illusion that staying longer will fix something that isn't yours to repair. Step 2. Communicate your boundary once, clearly and without emotion. Stoics didn't repeat themselves. They stated their principles calmly and directly. You don't need a speech or a long explanation. You simply say, "This doesn't align with what I value." That's it. Respect doesn't come from volume, it comes from clarity. Step 3. Act, don't argue. When you enforce a boundary, there's nothing to negotiate. You don't need to defend it or seek approval. You simply alter your behavior to match your decision. This is where most people slip. They try to convince the other person instead of committing to their own standards. Step 4. Remove your emotional investment from the reward system. If someone gives you attention only when you're pulling away, or affection only when you're compliant, you must detach from the emotional highs and lows that keep you hooked. Stoicism teaches you to be centered, not reactive to external validation. Step 5. Rebuild your internal world. Walking away creates a vacuum, and if you don't fill it with growth, solitude, and self-reflection, you risk returning to what broke you. Stoics use journaling, physical discipline, and daily reflection to reinforce identity. A man who is whole within himself, they taught, cannot be controlled by the whims of another. Step 6. Honor the silence. After you leave, don't reach out, don't check in, don't monitor. The silence is the purification process. It's where your emotional system recalibrates. It's where your self-respect grows roots. Breaking the silence weakens the very boundary you worked so hard to build. Step 7. Step into the life that reflects your new standards. Walking away isn't just about escaping something harmful. It's about moving toward the life and relationships that align with the person you're becoming. The Stoics never left emptiness behind. They moved toward purpose, virtue, and a higher version of themselves. Walking away the Stoic way doesn't look like rage or bitterness. It looks like clarity. It looks like calm. It looks like a man or woman who isn't proving anything to anyone, a person whose self-respect speaks louder than their emotions ever could. But there's one final challenge: the rebuilding. After you walk away, after the dust settles, after the silence becomes real, you're left with yourself, and this is where your identity either fractures or evolves. The Stoics believed that what you do after you leave shapes your future more than the leaving itself. In Chapter 9, we explore the final phase: reclaiming your identity, rebuilding your inner world, and becoming someone who never again tolerates what you just walked away from. Chapter 9. Reclaiming your identity. After leaving, becoming unshakable. When you finally walk away, there's a moment, quiet, heavy, unfamiliar, where everything feels different. The noise stops, the chaos ends, and you're left in the stillness that most people spend their entire lives running from. This is where the real work begins, not in leaving, but in rebuilding. The Stoics believed that identity isn't found in relationships, roles, or attachments. It's forged in solitude. After you walk away, your mind naturally reaches for the past, the comfort, the habits, the versions of yourself you outgrew. But this new space you've entered is sacred. It's where you reclaim the parts of yourself you abandoned while trying to hold everything together. This stage isn't about moving on. It's about moving inward. It's about rediscovering who you were before you started shrinking, before you made excuses, before you bent yourself to fit someone else's world. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a person who returns to themselves returns to strength, and that's exactly what this chapter is about: returning. You rebuild through discipline, not distraction, through reflection, not avoidance, through intentional solitude, not isolation. The Stoics used journaling to sharpen clarity. They used physical training to anchor the body. They used silence to strengthen the mind. These tools weren't rituals, they were recalibrations. Every moment spent alone, every boundary honored, every impulse resisted, slowly reshapes your identity into something sturdier. You begin to see the relationship differently, not through emotion, but through understanding. You realize you didn't lose something. You released something that was blocking your growth. You stop asking, "Why did they treat me like that?" and start asking, "Why did I tolerate it?" This is the moment your identity shifts from wounded to awakened. And here's the transformation the Stoics recognized. Once you rebuild yourself after walking away, you become someone who will never again accept the version of love you used to settle for. Your boundaries strengthen, your clarity sharpens, your self-worth stops depending on other people's behavior. You start choosing relationships that match your values, not your wounds. The pain you carried turns into wisdom. The silence you feared becomes peace. The person you were becomes the foundation for the person you're becoming. And slowly, the version of you who stayed too long fades, while the version of you who walks away when needed emerges, steady, grounded, whole. This is the Stoic philosophy of walking away. See clearly, act decisively, endure the discomfort, rise in the silence, rebuild with intention, and never betray yourself again. Walking away isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of the version of you who finally understands your own worth. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. If this video hit hard, comment unshakable so we know who actually made it to the end. And then check out one of the videos put on the screen. Both of them build on the concepts you just learned. And as always, stay stoic, my friends.